Hello, my name is Jeremy, and this is the True Crime Chronicles channel. Amy Weidner became a mother at the tender age of 14, giving birth to a daughter. This development was a challenging ordeal for her mother, Gloria Weidner, who, despite the difficulties, stood firmly by her daughter's side. Unbeknownst to Gloria at the time, the complexity of coping with her daughter's early pregnancy would soon be overshadowed by a far more distressing event that would impact their family just 2 years later. Amy Weidner, born in 1973, was part of a large family, including her older brother John Paul, who was a year older, and 2 younger sisters, Tawny and Cassie, younger by 1 and 4 years respectively. Their mother, Gloria Weidner, single-handedly raised the children following a long-ago divorce from their father, who played no role in their upbringing. The family of 5 resided in a house in Indianapolis, where Amy was her mother's primary aide, handling cooking, cleaning, and caring for her sisters. A studious girl, Amy harbored dreams of becoming a teacher, known for her bright, cheerful demeanor and engaging smile. At 14, life took an unexpected turn when Amy became pregnant. She was hesitant to share the news with her mother, concealing her growing belly under loose clothing for over 5 months. Her pregnancy remained unnoticed by her family until nearly 6 months in, when hiding it became increasingly challenging. Eventually, Amy mustered the courage to approach her mother, breaking down in tears as she revealed her situation. "Mom, I don't want you to hate me," she tearfully confided. Gloria, though taken aback, embraced her daughter with comforting words of support, despite feeling overwhelmed and unsure about the future. "I was stunned. I just couldn't believe it. I thought it was the worst thing that could happen in my life," Gloria recounted, unaware of the even more heart-rending events that were yet to unfold. Amy Weidner's baby was fathered by 20-year-old Tony Abercrombie, who was a friend of her elder brother. Their relationship was a well-kept secret, with none of their family members aware of the intimacy between them. Upon discovering her daughter's pregnancy, Gloria, Amy's mother, swiftly intervened. She prohibited any further contact between Amy and Tony and insisted that Amy fully sever her ties with the father of her unborn child, laying down strict conditions for her daughter's future interactions. On October 25, 1987, Amy Weidner embraced motherhood by welcoming her daughter Emily into the world. Remarkably, just 6 days after giving birth, Amy resumed her education, now juggling the responsibilities of being a new mother. Gloria Weidner, recognizing the importance of education for her daughter's future, provided unwavering support to Amy, often caring for Emily to facilitate Amy's schooling. Gloria also acknowledged Amy's need for a typical teenage life, allowing her time with friends. Amy's dedication to her studies never waned, even amidst the demands of motherhood. She continued to excel academically, earning accolades from her teachers for her diligence and hard work. The Weidner family adapted to the new addition, sharing the responsibilities of caring for Emily. Life seemed to be realigning on a positive path as the years passed, with Amy successfully navigating her challenges. However, just as they found their footing, a sudden turn of events altered everything. On November 13, 1989, Amy Weidner, aged 16, awoke with a severe sore throat and decided to stay home from school with her 2-year-old daughter, Emily. When Gloria, her mother, offered to take Emily to the nanny, Amy chose to keep her daughter with her. After the family shared breakfast, they dispersed for the day. Gloria headed to work, and Amy's siblings went off to school, leaving Amy and Emily at home alone. Concerned after her 9:30 a.m. call to Amy went unanswered, and again a few hours later with no response, Gloria asked a neighbor to check in on them. The neighbor's report of an unresponsive, quiet house prompted Gloria to leave work and rush home. Upon arrival, she found Emily sitting on the stairs and, receiving no answer to her calls for Amy, ventured upstairs. The scene in Amy's bedroom was a tragic and shocking one. Amy lay lifeless and unclothed on her bed, surrounded by a significant amount of blood. In a state of emergency, Gloria immediately dialed 911. Upon their arrival, the police began a meticulous examination of the Weidner residence. The scene led them to initially suspect an attempted burglary. Missing from the home were stereo equipment and a graphic equalizer, items that belonged to Amy's older brother, John Paul. Notably, from Amy's room, a piggy bank, a simple glass jar containing around $50 saved for school purposes, had disappeared. There were no indications of forced entry into the house. The perpetrator might have entered through an unlocked back door or the front door, potentially opened by Amy herself. Crucial evidence was discovered in Amy's room. Semen on the bed linen, a bloody palm print on the wall, and several strands of hair, both body and head hair, presumably from the assailant. The medical examiner's findings concluded that Amy Weidner had suffered a blow to the head with a sharp object, was sexually assaulted, and ultimately strangled. The realization that Emily, Amy's 2-year-old daughter, could have witnessed the harrowing events is deeply unsettling. Fortunately, she was found unharmed. Recognizing the potential value of any information Emily might provide, the police made an effort to communicate with her, despite her young age of just over 2 years. Utilizing finger puppets to create a more child-friendly environment, they gently probed for any details she could recall. During this interaction, Emily, energetically moving around the room, mentioned only that her mother seemed very angry that day. As part of the evidence collection, the police sectioned off and removed the part of the wall bearing the assailant's bloody palm print. Additionally, they gathered the victim's clothing and bed linens from the crime scene to further their investigation into this tragic case. In the process of investigating Amy Weidner's case, detectives initiated inquiries among her family, friends, and nearby residents. John Paul, Amy's 17-year-old brother, mentioned how the investigators initially suspected him during the interrogation. However, he had a reliable alibi and no evidence linked him to the incident. Tony Abercrombie, Amy's former boyfriend and Emily's father, was also interrogated. He expressed deep affection for Amy and denied any harmful intentions towards her. Tony had a solid alibi for the crime day. The police's attention was also drawn to Troy Jackson, living next to the Weidners. He was aware of the stereo system stolen on the murder day. Despite his denial of involvement and the absence of any bruises or scratches on his hands, Troy provided his hair samples, which did not match those found at the crime scene. After passing a polygraph test, suspicions against him were dropped. Besides these three, the police interviewed other acquaintances, neighbors, and classmates of Amy. Fingerprints and hair samples were taken from all of them, but none fell under suspicion. The funeral for Amy Weidner was held shortly afterward, drawing a considerable crowd who wished to pay their respects. Her death was deeply felt within the community. Detectives attended the funeral too, carefully observing the attendees as part of their ongoing investigation. A particularly poignant memory was a cherished photograph of Amy, where she wore her favorite white turtleneck vest with a floral design. It was in this beloved attire that Amy, a young girl whose life was tragically cut short, was laid to rest. In the aftermath of their tragic loss, the Weidner family clung to the hope that Amy's killer would be swiftly apprehended and brought to justice. Yet, as the days turned into weeks and then months, no suspects were identified. Following Amy's passing, Gloria Weidner legally adopted her granddaughter Emily, stepping into the role of her mother. The weight of grief and fear burdened Gloria. She was haunted by thoughts of the perpetrator, worrying about the safety of her family. She never left her daughters unattended at home and lived in a state of constant anxiety. With the assailant still at large, Gloria considered relocating to a new home for safety. However, financial constraints limited their options, leaving them to face these challenging times in their current residence. Amy's friends, too, were deeply affected by the tragedy. Consumed by fear that the criminal could target them next, they requested their parents to fortify their homes, even boarding up windows with planks as a precautionary measure against a similar fate. Gloria returned home one day, expecting to find her younger daughters back from school. Upon entering, she was met with a disquieting silence. The house felt unusually empty. She noticed the girls' outdoor shoes were in their usual spot. A surge of dreadful thoughts raced through her mind, apprehending another calamity. With each step towards the upstairs, the distance felt increasingly vast. Standing at the threshold of their bedroom, Gloria steeled herself for what she might find. Upon entering, she discovered, much to her relief, that her daughters had merely fallen asleep. As time went on, Emily, Amy's daughter, matured. She was spared the memories of the tragic events surrounding her biological mother. Emily had no recollection of the police interrogation or being informed of her mother's demise. The detectives periodically revisited the Weidner family, inadvertently causing them to revisit the pain of that dreadful day. Gloria revealed that there came a time when the continual revisiting of the past became too much to bear. She yearned for just one thing: for the authorities to allow her family some peace and to cease reawakening memories that could not bring Amy back. 13 years after Amy Weidner's murder, in 2002, an unexpected development arose in the case. The Indianapolis Police Department received a call from a 29-year-old man claiming to have had a dream where Amy communicated with him about her demise. Although he provided details about the murder, most of the information had already been disclosed in news reports. The police investigated this individual, who was 16 at the time of the incident and resided across the street from Amy's home. His fingerprints and DNA were examined to determine any potential involvement, but no matches were found, leading to his release. While his call didn't contribute significant evidence, it prompted detectives to re-examine the cold case. In 2002, the investigation re-engaged with some of Amy's friends and acquaintances, particularly those who had encountered legal issues over the intervening years. Despite renewed efforts, the investigation once again reached an impasse, leaving the case unsolved. In 2011, a Facebook group titled Remembering Amy Weidner was established by Amy's friends, reigniting interest in her unsolved case. The detective responsible for the cold case, unfamiliar with Facebook, enlisted the help of his colleague, Detective Bill Carter, to print out information from the group. This task piqued Carter's interest in the Amy Weidner case. Although his expertise was in non-homicide-related illegal activities, Carter was compelled to explore the case files of Amy's murder during his free time. Carter delved deep into the 2-decade-old case, scrutinizing every detail in the file, re-examining evidence, reviewing school attendance records from the day of the murder, and scrutinizing the funeral attendance list. He inputted the case details into a database and identified overlooked leads, including several friends of Amy's brother who had never been interviewed by the police, nor had their DNA been collected. In his pursuit of new leads, Detective Carter reached out to the Weidner family and Amy's friends in 2011, seeking names of individuals who might possess information about the case. He initiated DNA collection from persons previously overlooked in the initial 1989 investigation. Following the crime, the police had canvassed the neighborhood where the Weidners lived, documenting residents' names. Carter revisited these records and the area, verifying if any residents still lived at their original addresses. His efforts led him to a woman who lived across the street from the murder scene and was a neighbor and friend of Amy. She attempted to recall the names of boys Amy had been friends with. While she reiterated most of the previously known and investigated names, she also mentioned a name unfamiliar to Detective Carter, Rodney Denk. In 2012, Detective Carter received authorization from the Cold Case Unit to formally take on Amy Weidner's case. His first step was to locate Rodney Denk to ascertain whether he could be a potential suspect. The Weidner family was quite familiar with Rodney, as he was a friend of Amy's older brother, John Paul. They spent time together engaging in activities like biking and fishing. When Carter inquired about Rodney with John Paul, he described him as a reserved individual who largely kept to himself and had never aroused suspicion. Carter visited the home of 40-year-old Rodney Denk, who resided with his mother near the Weidners. Rodney was employed at an auto parts store, had been divorced for some time, and had a grown son with whom he had minimal contact. Upon Carter's arrival at Rodney's residence, his mother greeted him, informing the detective that Rodney was at work. Carter left his business card, requesting Rodney to contact him upon his return. That evening, Rodney called Carter, who promptly requested a meeting to discuss Amy Weidner's murder case. Rodney consented to the meeting and allowed Carter to visit his house. However, when Carter returned for the meeting, Rodney was nowhere to be found. Carter examined Rodney's criminal background and found that he had previous charges for assault in 1991 and theft in 1997. Rodney's fingerprints, already in the database, were compared with the palm print found at the Weidner residence. This test aimed to either connect or exonerate Rodney from the crime. When the results came back, they confirmed a match between Rodney's prints and the bloody palm print at the crime scene. After 23 years, a suspect was finally identified, but Rodney had vanished from his home, prompting an intensive search by the police. The breakthrough came when Rodney's credit card activity revealed a rented car with an OnStar tracking system. The detectives located the car in Indianapolis, where Rodney was hiding at a friend's house. Confronted by the police, Rodney, brandishing a knife and claiming his innocence, injured himself. He attempted to attack the officers but was subdued with a taser, handcuffed, and taken to the hospital. During a 2-day hospital interrogation, recorded on camera, Rodney confessed to Amy's murder. He claimed his initial intent was burglary, not anticipating Amy's presence due to her illness. Rodney recounted entering through a sliding glass door and being startled by Amy. In a state of panic, Rodney Denk hastily grabbed the nearest object and struck the girl on the head, an action that ultimately led to her demise. Over the course of 2 days, as he recounted the incident, Rodney frequently cited his vague recollection of that day's events, attributing it to the 23 years that had elapsed since the crime. His account of his actions was imprecise, and at one point, he even suggested that he had visited the Weidner's house with an acquaintance he referred to as Bag. Rodney struggled to recall clear details about this supposed accomplice, unable to provide a description of his appearance. According to Rodney, Bag had initially kept watch outside the Weidner residence before joining him inside, where they both confronted the girl. When questioned about Emily, Rodney claimed he did not see her during the incident, nor was he aware of her presence or cries in the house, oblivious to the fact that the little girl had been nearby throughout the ordeal. Throughout the interrogation, Rodney remained composed and polite, not exhibiting behavior typically associated with a murderer, possibly due to the time elapsed since the crime. Rodney Denk's DNA sample was taken and, as anticipated, it matched the semen discovered in 1989 on Amy Weidner's bedsheet and blanket. In a moment of candor, Rodney admitted to the detectives, "I always tried to be a good person, but I guess deep down, I'm not." Both the palm print and semen found at the crime scene were confirmed to be his, with no indications of an accomplice's involvement. The revelation of Rodney's guilt was a profound shock to the Weidner family. They found it hard to reconcile the image of the quiet and unassuming Rodney, who was not only a friend and classmate of Amy's older brother John Paul, but also lived across the street and frequented their home, with his heinous act. Remarkably, Rodney had even attended Amy's funeral, mourning alongside others and extending condolences to Gloria Weidner. Later, Detective Carter discovered Rodney's signature in the guest book at Amy's funeral. It was only upon revisiting the case that he found Rodney's name first brought up in 2003 by Tony Abercrombie, Amy's former boyfriend and Emily's biological father, who mentioned Rodney's regular visits to the Weidner family. Carter surmised that back in 1989, Rodney Denk had somehow evaded attention. For some unknown reason, he was never considered a suspect or questioned at the time. While delving into Rodney Denk's background in 2012, investigators unearthed another grim detail. Rodney's biological son, Dylan Denk, was found to be incarcerated, serving a sentence for a crime committed in 2009. At just 16 years old, Dylan had fatally assaulted his birth mother, Mary McHenry. Dylan claimed he acted out in response to his mother's abuse and insults, ultimately using a baseball bat to inflict the fatal injuries. Tragically, Mary passed away from the wounds inflicted. Dylan turned 17 just days after the incident. This mirrored Rodney's own history, as he was 18 when he committed the murder of Amy. The parallel of father and son committing significant crimes at a similar age struck the detectives as both chilling and peculiar. Rodney's role in Dylan's upbringing was minimal, having divorced Mary McHenry quite early and leaving her to raise their son alone. Despite this, Rodney appeared at Dylan's trial to give testimony. In 2009, Dylan agreed to a plea deal, resulting in a 20-year prison sentence. His anticipated release is in 2029, by which time he will be 37 years old. In the ongoing case of Amy Weidner, Rodney Denk initially maintained that he had an accomplice in the crime, a young man he referred to as Bag. However, in a turn of events in June 2013, merely 10 days before his trial was scheduled to commence, 42-year-old Rodney recanted his previous statement. He admitted to acting alone in the murder of Amy, asserting that no one else was involved. As a result of this confession and the evidence against him, Rodney received a sentence of 65 years in prison. In 2013, following the resolution of Amy's case, the Weidner family arranged a gathering with Detective Bill Carter. They commemorated the 24 years without Amy by releasing 24 balloons into the sky. Grateful for Detective Carter's pivotal role in the case, the family acknowledged his efforts. It was Carter who, within just 12 days of delving into the case, pinpointed Rodney Denk as the perpetrator and brought the investigation to a close. In recognition of his outstanding work, Detective Bill Carter was honored with an award by the Indianapolis Police Department in January 2014. Despite an offer to join the Homicide Investigation Department, he chose to remain in his current role. Emily Weidner, Amy's daughter, matured into adulthood, graduating from the same high school her biological mother had attended, before pursuing higher education at a university. Seeking broader opportunities, she relocated from Indianapolis to California. Gloria Weidner, Amy's mother, openly shared her enduring grief and daily remembrance of her daughter. She continues to reside in the house where the tragedy unfolded. Amy's room, still adorned with her photographs, now welcomes Gloria's grandchildren during their holiday visits, bringing a new sense of joy and life to a space once marked by loss. If you found this story interesting, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to write your opinion in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you in the next video.